this is a very special documentary. We celebrate the 76th anniversary of India's independence. And of course, we focus on sport. Over the next 15 odd minutes, we will take you through a journey that celebrates achievement, of passion, commitment, and where the nation has come to in terms of sport across spheres, across disciplines. 1948, that's actually the first landmark. 1948, in the political terrain, India had attained freedom in 1947. But in the sporting domain, it happened in 1948, when the Indian hockey team went to London for the London Olympic Games. Imagine this, for 200 years, we were colonized. And all of a sudden, you were facing the United Kingdom, that too in London, and in an Olympic gold medal clash in the hockey final. India versus England, for that match, I think was the greatest nationalist moment in the history of Indian sport. And what happened? India won 4-0. 4-0 against the mother country. Retribution, if there was one, is this. India wins it and becomes the Olympic champion once again after 1928, 1932, 1936, and then 48. And over the next few years, the decade went on. 1952, once again India champions. 1956, once again India champions. That's what the story of hockey was. Add other sports to it. Add Tenzing Norgay, reaching the climax and climbing Mount Everest. Add a number of things in cricket. India did reasonably well. 1952, winning our first test match against England in Chennai. Add 1956 in football. India made the Olympic semi-final for the only time in their history. It was a decade that set Indian sport up. It was a decade that we will look back and remember with fondness and pride. We were a new country and we were getting footing in international sport, gradually establishing ourselves. We hosted the Asian Games in 51, but come the Olympic Games, India was still reliant on hockey. 1960, for the first time, a silver interlude as India lost the gold medal to Pakistan. 64, under Charanjit Singh, we got it back in Tokyo. All of us remember what our goalkeeper did in the last few minutes. Ask Gurbakh Singh and he will tell you the story. But on the athletics track in 1960 in Rome, there was a certain Milkha Singh. Became part of Indian folk. Yes, he did not win a medal, but he did enough to instill what I call self-belief. We started doing well in other sports as well. In cricket, for example, we beat the English in home conditions in India. Thereafter, 1964, that famous victory against Australia in Mumbai. But more importantly, in 1967, for the first time, India won an away series under Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi in New Zealand, beating New Zealand 3-1. Come to tennis, and for the first time we had a Wimbledon semi-finalist, perhaps the greatest individual singles player that India has seen, Ramanathan Krishnan. We know how good he was from footage. And thereafter in 1966 with Joydeep Mukherjee and Premjit Lal, we took on the best in world doubles and did a fantastic Davis Cup campaign for our country. So overall, as you can see, across sport, India was getting there. Finally in football in 1962, the highest ever moment, with India winning the gold medal in Jakarta at the Asian Games. That's the funny story. The Indian team was booed all through. Ginny Sondhi had to flee Jakarta. Even when the medals were being given, the Indians were being targeted and abused, but nothing happened with the players who were singularly focused to win the gold medal for India. As I said, the country was making rapid steps towards sporting progress. And this continued in the decade of the 1970s. We turn to that next. The 1970s, fascinating decade. I was actually looking through some of it. 1971, of course, you start with cricket, right? Renaissance of Indian cricket, the new dawn, India goes to the West Indies. Before that in 1962, we lost 0-5. 1971, beating the West Indies in the West Indies for the first time. Some people said it was a fluke. Some months later, Ajit Wadekar's India, and there was a new man in that team, a certain Sunil Gavaskar, who scored 774 in the Caribbean, beat England in England. Bhagwat Chandrasekhar, the elephant coming into the Oval, it is simply a historic tale. Now, if cricket started like that at the start of the decade, it continued well and truly beautifully. 1976, chasing down 400 runs in the West Indies against the West Indies in Port of Spain. Other sports as well stood up. 1970, for the first time, again a bronze medal this time for Indian football at the Bangkok Asian Games. Football thereafter underwent a decline, but hockey, which was not really good in 1972 or 1976 at the Olympic Games, stood up in 1975. For the first time, India, and the only time in history, India won a world championship in hockey under Aslam Sher Khan. That team, the Ajit Pal Singh team, fantastic achievement for the Indians to win that. Other sports, Davis Cup 1974, India made the final. Think about it, making the final, and then sport and politics, I always say, come together as strange bedfellows. India refused to play the final, taking a very strong stand against apartheid, and rightly so. India said, and if you go and check Vijay Amritraj's quote, that it meant far more to the team to take that stand against apartheid and refuse to play the final. So what if they did not win? Overall, it was a magical decade, once again, and by the time it ended towards the late 1970s, India had decided to host what will be the second Asian Games on home soil in '83. To the decade of the 1980s, one that changed everything. With the Asian Games and the Prudential Cup, we turn next. Keep watching. The 1980s has to be one of the most fascinating decades in the history of Indian sport. Think about cricket and you know why, right? 1983 Prudential Cup, coming from nowhere, 66-1 outsiders, Kapil Dev's team goes to England and creates history, now immortalized through Ranveer Singh and the film 83. What an incredible final. Ask Clive Lloyd and he will tell you that the cricket world actually changed after India beat the West Indies in that final. But why only cricket? Look at other sports. India hosted the 1982 Asian Games. Delhi was transformed. Appu became a household name. I was 6. All of us started collecting Appu coins. Still, some of us possess them. All of us counted the number of 10 paisa, 20 paisa coins that we had in these little piggy banks that our parents gave us, right? Fascinating decade. Look at Indian football, 1980s under Chirich Milovan, we were doing reasonably well, trying to make a bit of a comeback. A lot was happening with a young girl making a breakthrough in the athletics domain. Yes, a certain P.T. Usha, it was national heartbreak when Christina Koikaru thrust herself at that 1984 Los Angeles, end tape. But Usha was not one to be pushed down. In the 1986 Seoul Asian Games, P.T. Usha with multiple gold medals proved what an Indian could do. Back to cricket, the decade ended with an important event. For the first time after 1983 World Cup, after 75, after 79 and 83, it had moved. It had moved to the subcontinent with the Reliance Cup, and a new superpower was coming. With that 83 win, a profession in cricket was gradually started to be visible. The middle class started to aspire. Corporate India was getting into sport. And the decade closed with chess. The man who still is the poster boy, winning that Grandmaster title at the age of 18. Yes, we had a sensation in Vishwanathan Anand. What a decade it was. And as we were closing out with 87 and Sunil Gavaskar was leaving us in pain and sorrow, we wanted a new savior. The next decade gave that to us in the form of Sachin Tendulkar. Back with Sachin and more. As I said, it started with Sachin Tendulkar. With Sunil Gavaskar no longer there, India going to Pakistan in 1989, we were all wondering what would happen to us in Pakistan. Yes, it was Sanjay Manjrekar's series, but there was one 16-year-old. A 16-year-old who Javed Miandad said, "Tu to doodh pita bachcha hai, tu ghar jaake dobara aa ja." And here was this man getting hit here on the nose because of Waqar Younis and refused to go out and wanted to play. And when it came to that rain-curtailed match, Abdul Qadir saw what the rest of the world would soon. Sachin Tendulkar had come to dominate. Sachin Tendulkar had come to rule. It was his decade. Think of Australia 1992, England 1990. Think of what that man did. And if that was, Sachin Tendulkar in cricket, there was another man. Junior Wimbledon 1990, and then in Atlanta with a major injury scare, Leander Adrian Paes. 1952 Kashba Jadhav was the last time we had won an individual medal. And here was Leander Paes. All of us remember that match against Andre Agassi. Fernando Meligeni of Brazil defeated Leander Paes, won India's bronze medal after 44 years. Off the field, fascinating decade. 1993, 13.5-hour ICC meeting, the veto done away with. The 96 World Cup comes to India thanks to Jagmohan Dalmia, Inderjeet Bindra and Madhavrao Scindia. Using this, 1997, a Marwari businessman from nowhere becomes the president of the ICC, and India starts to become the nerve center of global cricket. Something that got consolidated in the next decade under a Bengali captain. No six-packs, but a superstar. We come to that, and the badminton revolution that was led by a certain Pullela Gopichand with the All England next. Keep watching. The turn of the millennium was tumultuous as far as Indian cricket is concerned. We all know, right? Match fixing. Cricket needed a series that would reinstate faith. And that's what we got with 2001 India v Australia. India comes to Kolkata under Saurav Ganguly, 0-1 down, blown away at the Wankhede in 3 days. Then Australia 445 at the Eden Gardens. India 128 for 8, and all of us like, oh, another match done. 171 all out. All of a sudden, we see a certain VVS Lakshman go out at number 3. Rahul Dravid at 5. Fourth day, 335 runs. Not a single Indian wicket. Australia vanquished. 100,000 people finding voice. Cricket gets a new lifeline. Yes, that's what the turn of the millennium did to the sport. In another sport, All England, only the great Prakash Padukone had done that in the 1980s. And now it was the turn of Pullela Gopichand. Winning the All England, making a massive statement. He still rues the fact that he was best placed to win a medal in Sydney, unfortunately didn't, but went on to win All England and set the benchmark. At the Sydney Games, it was Karnam Malleshwari that's the only medal in weightlifting, going out there, the only Indian to do so. The turn of the millennium, the Indian Express in doubles. Leander Paes and Mahesh Bhupati were winning everything. They were winning Wimbledon, they were winning the Australian, they were making a statement in the world of doubles, and all of a sudden were the number 1 team. Indian sport clearly was making the most of the millennium. And as things progressed, we started to change things around. Structures were coming in. We needed a certain army man in Rajyavardhan Rathore to do it in 2004 in shooting. And that started the onset of a revolution that was carried forward 4 years later. That's by next decade, when Indian Olympic sport really came of age, when a bespectacled man hit the Holy Grail in Beijing with a final shot of 10.9. To the Bindra moment, we come next. Keep watching. Perhaps the most eventful and most successful decade in the history of Indian sport. 2007 started with the World T20. The World Cup 50 over misadventure, was something that all of us wanted to forget. And all of a sudden, there was one young man who took over the reins, MS Dhoni, who led an unheralded India to a T20 World Cup victory in the inaugural edition in South Africa. And that spurned a revolution. Next year, a maverick in Lalit Modi launched the IPL with the BCCI, and that transformed the whole vista of what we call franchise cricket. IPL today is valued at several $1 billion, and that's what dominates the world cricketscape, if I can say that. Come 2011, India added to it. MS Dhoni added to it. What a final. Gautam Gambhir, 97. Sachin Tendulkar, 490 plus runs. Zahir Khan, multiple maidens in that final. And of course, Yuvraj Singh playing with all of the health issues that you can think of and winning the man of the tournament title. And that MS Dhoni 6, which has been immortalized on television. Add to that the 2013 Champions Trophy win, and it was a solid decade as far as Indian cricket is concerned. Move to Olympic sport. At 2008 was the Bindra moment. Here was a man coming from nowhere, missed out in Athens, missed out in Sydney, and here he was in Beijing. With a 10.9 final shot, Abhinav Bindra, the first individual gold medalist in Indian Olympic history. In Paralympics, we had a Murlikant Petkar, we had a Devendra Jhajaria, but in terms of Olympics, able-bodied games, India did not have anybody. And here was the first, Abhinav Bindra, who on set marked the beginning of a revolution. In London, we built on Beijing. Vijender Singh and Sushil Kumar had added to Bindra in Beijing, and all of a sudden, it doubled in London with 6 medals. Women's boxing came in, and so came a Mary Kom. What an incredible story she was. She added to Gagan Nara. She added to all of the other medals with Sushil Kumar, with Yogeshwar Dutt. In shooting, India did well with Vijay Kumar as well. And in badminton, to Gopi's promise. In 2008, she had fallen short, losing to Maria Christine Yulianti of Indonesia. In 2012, Saina Nehwal winning India's first badminton medal at the London Games. India was making serious strides. The Indian Olympic Association, thanks to inefficiency, got banned. It went a dip. 2016 Rio, a young PV Sindhu and a young Sakshi Malik gave us salve for a troubled nation. We weren't doing too well. The decade had started brilliantly. With Vishwanathan Anand, chess too stood against Boris Gelfand. That world championship stands out for me. But it ended rather tamely. Can India make a comeback? Can the decade that's still ongoing be the best decade ever? It possibly can, because there's a certain Neeraj Chopra to lead coming back. The decade ended rather tamely. 2016 Indian sport wasn't doing too well. In 17, only 60, handful of journalists actually, were there in Bombay airport to see off a team led by Mithali Raj. What an incredible career. Incredible career. 1999, 20 years at the top, almost every record in her name, assisted by an able Chulan Goswami. Again, 2002 start, 2005 the two of them led that team to a World Cup final, but we did not celebrate. We did not really celebrate that win. 17, everything changed. Think of that World Cup that India made the final. Raj should have won it for India. India should have won, had a couple of mistakes. I mean, I still think a young Deepti Sharma, Aveda Krishnamurthy. Think of that match. Semi-final was that 171 by Harmanpreet Kaur. Mithali Raj's team had captured world imagination. Ask Raj and she will tell you. What had changed was respect. When the team came back, that you are seeing a WPL was actually heralded by Raj, Goswami and the rest. That's the start of that decade. And if you take it forward, once again we were seeing signs in hockey. We were seeing signs that sports science, health, understanding of the body, all of these things were happening in Indian sport, and they stood out in Tokyo. A women's team led by Rani Rampal and assisted by Savita Punia from nowhere takes out Australia in the quarterfinal. The men's team looked the fittest. the Manpreet Singh, Rupinder Pal Singh, Harmanpreet Singh side stood out under coach Graham Reed. After 40 years, India wins another hockey medal. Bajrang Punia stood up. A lot of people stood up, but you can't forget a little Mirabai Chanu on the first day of the Olympics. She was fascinating. From a remote village in Assam comes this girl, Lovelina Borgohain, and she wins a boxing medal. PV Sindhu does an incredible double. After Rio, does it again in Tokyo. But you know what? The final day, 7th of August 2021, is when everything changed. We were there in the stadium and an 87.58 throw. The first time ever in athletics, in Indian history, in Olympic history, an Indian was there at the podium. The tricolour was going up. The national anthem was being played. And it's not the first time. We saw it with the Diamond League. We've seen that with the Asian Games. We know this man can do it in Paris. In cricket, the IPL has grown from strength to strength. The women's team, no longer Raj and Goswami, they now have the WPL but need to get better. Overall, Indian sport is on the cusp of breaking through. We have a Gukesh overcoming the 37-year-old reign of a Vishwanathan Anand. You have a Prabhu, you have a Nihal Sarin, you have a whole crop there. You have a football team under a living legend in Sunil Chhetri breaking through the ranks, making it to the double digit in pot 2 again under coach Igor Stimac. You look at Indian sport, you have a certain Satwik Chirag under Pulala Gopichand and Matthias Bo, almost there. They are favourites for an Olympic medal for sure. You have a resurgence of sorts. Can India touch double digits in Paris? A question all of us are asking. But the more immediate question, can India break the ICC jinx, win a World Cup on home soil under Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid? Can Virat Kohli sign off his 50-over career with an incredible win? Can then the women's team go on and win a World Cup in the next few years? These are unfinished business. And of course, the Asian Games, can India win 100 medals? Tough, but maybe not impossible. Come to Parasport and we are expected to win 100 plus medals with some incredible men and women like an Avani Lekhara, like a Sumit Antil, like an Ajit Singh. Paris 2024 could just be the revolution that Indian sport wants. And our Independence Day will coincide with the games in Paris. We at RevSportz will be there. We celebrate. You know why? Because sport teaches us to lose, and in doing so, it helps us to get better as human beings and as athletes. And when you lose, you know what it is to win. You know how to get better and make your mark. This is a story of a resurgent India, an India that means business, that wants to be the best in the world. We aren't there yet, but we will get there with your support and with all the support that we now get from government, from corporate India, from sports science, from private initiatives. Everyone comes together for one cause, and the cause is India. All the very best. Happy Independence Day.